Okay, now we're down to details. So we are going to build the roof here, which has a 10-degree slope on it. And if I zoom in a bit, what I have is a 1x2 skirt that goes around the inside of the existing frame that we just built, the 4 posts. There's a little decorative flourish on top of that. Then there's a 4.5, 1x4.5 here, and then a 1x6 here with a 10-degree bevel on it. That's going to be ringed with 2x2 with a 10-degree bevel on one side. Then we have our pitch. And then one of the other things that we're doing here inside is I'm going to build the entire column, which is a 6x6 outside dimension square. And it's 9.5 inches tall. And then I'm going to run a 1x2 this way to lock all it together. So I'm going to build my column, I'm going to build my outer frame, then I will cut these to lock everything together before I start doing all the angle pieces. That'll make it a little easier. Now the trick to this is I'm going to do two things as I'm building this column here in the middle. This is a mirror. There's a mirror image of this. This is cut through the center line. I'm going to paint the inside of this white before I assemble it. Otherwise, it'll be too difficult to paint. And I'm going to nail this piece on from this side before I assemble it onto this piece here. That way I can actually get the nails in. I'm also going to attach the 2x2 up here at the top, and I'm going to nail that in from the side as well. That's before I assemble anything, to make it nice and easy to do. And then along the inside top here we have a cap, which we are going to drill a hole, use a hole saw, cut a hole in, big enough for a light bulb to go into, and we're going to attach our light fixture up into there. Then this is the glass jar, which we're going to spray with frost. You can either try to find a jar, buy a jar online. They sell them all over the place. One of the easiest things to do, really, though, is use a tomato sauce jar. Regular old Prego tomato paste, tomato sauce. Empty it out, clean it off, get the sticker off. It's about the right size and shape. We're going to fabricate this cap here, which is going to be 2 layers of 1x that I'm going to glue together. I'm going to show you how to make this dome shape here, and then this is actually a circle, and then we're going to attach it all together. And then we have our 1/4 inch risers here. Now, obviously, you want to make this so that it can all come apart. So if you ever need to replace the glass or change the bulb or all that other stuff, I'll show you how we're going to do that later as well. So today we're going to make the roof of the TARDIS. Now I have that 1.5 by 45 inch square outside dimension, 45 inch outside dimension square outer frame built, and we have our column pieces cut to piece and painted white. Now we're painting them white so that the light acts like a bounce light chamber. So when I put a light bulb in there, it's going to bounce around and help make it glow and help illuminate it. Now as I've ripped some of my scrap lumber, this is wood from an old coffin that I used to have that I tore apart. Out of 1x12, I ripped that down to 4.5. I built my internal frame, which again, if you look at the drawing, here's my 1x2, here's my 4.5 inch tall, actual nominal 4.5 by 3/4. Then I will take my 1x6, and that will be the next one that I rip, and I'm actually going to rip a 10-degree bevel on there as well. So you can see it's 80 degrees out to 90, so I'm going to put a 10-degree bevel on there. That'll be the slope of the roof. And that sits 2.5 inches up from here. So I actually have a little gap down on the bottom side. And this gives me my steps for the top of the TARDIS. Now, What I'm going to do though is I'm going to finish nailing this up, and I'm going to test fit it before I go any further into the top up here to make sure that it actually fits. Because now is the time to make any adjustments, because it's easy to take apart and trim if I need to. Then if I go and I put it all together and then try to put it up there and realize that it's too big somewhere, that would be horrible, because then I'd have to dismantle the entire thing. In the meantime, what it does is it allows my white paint to dry. So now I've built the next inner frame, which is 1x6 with a 10-degree bevel along this top edge here. My inner pieces are dry. These will build up into that central column. And then I'm going to put a 1x2 in the center line of each of these boards at the base to hold the center column in position. I'm also going to put the 2x2 around the top of these pieces here. We'll also have a 10-degree bevel on it. And so, again, if we come back to the drawing, so here's my column. Here's my 2x2 that I'm going to put a bevel on. I'm going to put a 1x2 going across here. Here's my 1x6 with my 10-degree bevel. That's going to lock all that in. I'm going to do my 2x2 around the inside of this as well, again with a 10-degree bevel. And then I'm going to run stringers between the 2x2s so that I have a nailing surface for the 1/4-inch luan that's going to go on to cap the top of this. From there, we will start to work up this side. Okay, I got my first nailer cut, and what I'm doing is using a scrap piece of luan as a spacer so that I can offset this down, so when I put the luan cap on, it actually sits flush with the top. And I beveled the edges here. So I'll do 3 more of these all the way around. And then I'll cut a little piece which will go on the outside of this, which I'll nail in as well, along with the stringer that's going to tie all this together. Here's a helpful little hint. So what I'm doing is I'm attaching the top cleats. Now I can join 2 sides together so that when I go to add the next cleat onto the short side, I can line up my miter and my overhang and still be able to attach my stringer from the inside that goes between my frame here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to box up 2 sides together, form an L, get my other one of these installed, and then I will cut my 1 foot 5 1/4-inch stringers that will center this tower in, staple those on, get everything attached to this frame, and then we can fit it back inside this frame here, and it'll sit 2 1/4 inches up inside of this frame, and then from there we can actually start adding a couple other stringers just for nailing strips, and go from there. So as you can see, I nailed these together in L. I'm able to attach these on. These will be my nailers for the luan for the top of the column. I will also now nail in this here, which will be my top. Now when I do this, I want to make sure I'm only putting nails in the corners, so when I drill my hole in the middle, I'm not cutting into nail heads. So I will pin it here and here on each 4 corners. Now I'm not going to assemble the whole thing, so I'm only going to, right now, I'm only going to attach this to one of these, probably this one right here, so I can still attach my stringers, and then I will nail up the entire thing. So I just have this pushed together. It's still not nailed all the way together. What I'm going to do is now cut 4 stringers that will go along the base, along the ground there, to center this column within this frame. Those are 1 foot 5 1/4 each of 1x2. And then once I do that, I'm going to cut a stringer that will go from this upper nailer here to this other 2x2 nailer right here on a diagonal. And so on all 4 sides off the center. And then I'm going to make a special cut bevel, 45 degrees. That's going to go from here into each four corner. And that'll give me a nailing surface for the luan. Then we can start to cut out the luan. We'll measure and mark the luan. So we know it will be 40.5 inches at the base. It will be 6 inches at the top. And then whatever this distance is here, I have to measure it still. That will give us our trapezoid. We just connect the dots off the center line. Make 4 of those and we can nail them in place. Then we can start working on the little top. We've got our rails nailed in, our center post. So now I'm going to go from this upper nailer to this nailer. I'm going to run my 4 pieces that direction, and then I'll create the 4 corner pieces. Now these are going to have a 10-degree bevel going into each end. So now we have these in place, and we are almost to the point where what I have to do is make these corner pieces still. These are a little trickier because we're actually dealing with a compound bevel here. So what I need to do is figure out what that angle is on each side. I'm going to use my table saw, change my angle, and then rip the bevel on both sides of a 1x2, and that'll get to the underside so that I can nail that open edge together. All right, so before I make these diagonal braces here, I wanted to take the frame and insert it into that base frame that we made before. I'm going to cut some 2-inch wide spacers from some scrap material so that I have a 2-inch spacing all the way around. From there, we can start to cut out the skin and make these cross braces. Then we'll work on the top. That's the last piece. So I've got the roof flipped over, painted the inside white. I've got my panels cut out, painted those white. And let all this dry and assemble it later. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is make that cap, which is going to be 2 pieces of 1 by. One piece will be a 6-inch round, the other piece will be a 4-inch round that I'm going to put a belt sander on to get the curve. Right. So I have a 6-inch diameter and a 4-inch diameter, which I'm going to cut out into circles with my jigsaw. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw through the center of this, put it onto a drill, take it over to my bench sander, and I'm going to sand the profile that I want onto this top piece, and then I will attach the two together. And then this one, before I attach them, I'm going to drill my 4 1/4-inch holes for my 1/4-inch dowel rod. Okay, so I've already attached 3 sides. You can see I have my corner braces in. They were 20.5 inches long. I have to bevel the end so I can fit into the corners, gluing it all up, stapling it all in, and then what I'm going to do is go back over with a tube of silicone caulk, all-weather outdoor caulk, and caulk all the seams, because this is Luan, and if water, rain, snow get in there, it's going to delaminate and fall apart. So I'll do that. It's paintable caulk, so once I paint it up, we'll be good. Okay, I built these little quarter flourishes. They go around all 4 sides. They mimic the rails here. So they're 1.5 inches, 1.5 by 1.5 inches, 3 times 2 1/4 by 1.5 inches. A little bit of quarter round. I'll nail this on. Do all 4 corners, and this is just a little detail. So all the seams are now caulked up. I'm going to let that dry, paint it, and then what I have to do is I have to drill out my hole up here for my jar. The cap is made. I gotta get some 1/4-inch dowel rod to make the spindles, and then do that assembly. Give a nice coat of blue paint. Got a little quarter brackets on. After it dries here in the sun a bit, I will give it a touch-up, hit all the holidays. Here's my little cap. I gotta get some 1/4-inch dowel, put the jar in, then this will be done, and this can go on. So I'm gonna let the paint dry now. We're making the light. So what I have here It's just a spaghetti sauce jar that I soaked the label off of. I took some frost spray paint for window frost, painted the inside and outside of it. I drilled holes for 1/4-inch dowels that matched up with my cap, and now I'm going to glue the dowels in and lock all this in place. Then this will be done, and then I can mount the roof. All my 4 pegs are now mounted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this first before I try to mount it in there, because once I glue that in, I'm not going to be able to get all the sides of these pegs here. So I want to make sure that everything is painted before I attach it.